Cholet is under attack. It is the afternoon of September. What's the actual date of the Battle of Cholet? Oh, you know what? I keep telling you it was September. It's actually October 17 that this battle popped off. And we have now fought 3 engagements. Left, right, and center. Or west, center, and east. And the results were a smashing victory here for the Royalists. A smashing loss for the Royalists here, and a big victory for the Royalists here. Unfortunately for the Royalists, they have not touched Marceau's units, who are standing firm, nor have they had to deal with Haxo's units. Based on the results of the first 3 engagements, what you see here is essentially the survivors, and we'll zoom in and go a little bit closer. Before we do, just a couple of terrain effects. These roads here, the brown yarn is roads. That allows me to get as close to the historical as possible. We're only really looking at this area here, kind of below the ridge line, okay? And we've got the little stream that comes up. Not a lot's going to happen there, I think. But the stream does cost... So this river can only be crossed at Cholet. This stream over here costs an extra inch of movement to cover unless you're crossing at one of these 2 bridges. Now I've made a little bit of a change here. This was actually historically a chateau that was set back a little ways, but I turned it into a bridge to make it a little more tactically interesting. Over there you can see Haxo's brigade. They were historically hiding out in the weeds over here, and then they burst up and charged into the flanks of the Royalists, and the peasantry, the pole-armed guys, got confused. They thought a whole army had come in, so they actually kind of swept the field. It was a bad scene, man. This time what we're going to do is we're going to roll a d6 at the end of every turn. So Royalists go first, Republicans second, roll a d6. When that running tally reaches 15 or more, they're going to come on anywhere along this gray sponge. So they can come on here or there. Of course, the road gives them an extra inch of movement. They can move 4 inches if they're on the road, but they can also cross the stream up here. That's why I changed the chateau to a little bridge. And it is a bit of a chateau, or is that a country church? If we kind of zoom in on that cute little guy. Either way, that does open up some possibilities over there, and it forces the Royalists to have to think about what they're doing. This is the suburbs of Cholet in the rules that we're using. The entire massive amount of research that I did for this battle, i.e., I watched a few YouTube videos and I read this article by Rob Harper in Wargaming, Soldiers, and Strategy magazine. He says, the Republicans have the advantage of the town suburbs. I don't know what that means. It's going to slow you way down, but it's harder to defend. So what I did to kind of mimic this in the 2mm scale, figures by irregular miniatures, by the way, I dropped 3 built-up areas in addition to Cholet, so those do provide some measure of defense. If you have a unit that's in there and they're fighting someone, let's go to Rob Humble's excellent 2x2 Napoleonics. These are the rules that we're going to be using. If you're in melee and you are in a town, if you're defending a town, if you're a cavalry, you get -2. Is that really the only one? Okay, so we're doing some awesome stuff here. House rule: if you are in one of these built-up areas, you get a +2. Cavalry that'll negate, so it'll be a -2 per the rules, +2 per the suburbs. So they'll be fighting at even Stevens when they are in there. That's just if you're inside, you get that bonus for defending. I think that's it. There are some woods up there. I don't know. The light infantry are the only ones that can go through there. Now, let's now take a look at our forces, shall we? Over here on the Republican far right flank, we've got Mr. Vendee, who is shattered. What is he fighting with here? Altogether, all that Vendee has is 2 units of foot. Now, I should point out, the last battle we fought, each of these represented a battalion. This time, to cut down on the number of units, they are going to represent 2 battalions. Call it a teeny tiny regiment, okay? This is Vendee and Sherb, who took it on the chin. And, no, wait. they did okay. They did okay over here. But at any rate, taking into consideration the casualties from the first battle, what you've got is a light infantry, 3 foot, just regular line infantry, 1 battery of foot artillery, and 1 heavy cavalry. Over here in the center, you've got Marceau, who has not yet met the enemy. These guys were left behind as a second line. Remember that, I think it was Vimeu, was originally put up front as kind of a picket line to slow these guys down, buy the rest of the army time to get their act together. Worked really well, apparently, particularly over there on the left. Who else are we looking at here? We're looking at Marceau. Oh, no, I'm sorry. It was Beaupuy, not Vimeu. This is Vimeu over here. Beaupuy, he's kind of rolled in here with Marceau. And then they have, here's our 1 general. And then they have 1 artillery, 1 light cavalry, 1 heavy cavalry, and 4 line infantry holding down the center. Over on the right-hand side of the show, we already talked about Haxo's brigade. And here's where they really took a beating. All that General, who is that? Saint-Cezanne has left over there. That was Jordi and Cezanne. They just have 1 unit of artillery, 1 unit of infantry, and 1 unit of grenadiers. That's the only grenadier unit on the table. So not a lot of guys to hold all of that turf. But, as I said, good old Haxo is going to show up probably, I'm thinking by about turn 4. Let's take a look at the other side of the battlefield now. Over here on the Vendean right now is going to be General Roche Jacqueline and Roy-Ron. So this is Roy-Ron, Roche Jacqueline, and as you can see, we've got 3 mobs in a line, 3 mobs and 2 line. Don't pay attention to the fact that these guys are actually light. They're all just mobs. Pole-armed guys. Now this time around, because, well, we'll get to that in a second. I'm going to be doing something a little bit different with these guys based on the results of the last battle. But let's get through our orders of battle first. Here's our center column. And we're looking at Monsieur Delbey and Monsieur Bonchamps. And all together, they've got, between them, they've got 2 regular line, 2 light infantry, 6 of those mobs, and 1 light cavalry. Switching now over to the Royalist left column. You've got Monsieur Marigny, and Stofflet. Both wrapped together up here. Remember, they didn't do so hot over here on the flank before, but they did manage to maintain. So they've got the only artillery available to the Vendeans. They've got 2 line infantry, 1 light cavalry, and then 3 mobs. Let me pull back and let me explain how we're going to do the mobs this time around. Using Rod Humble's 2x2 Napoleonics, what we discover is that our Republicans have a grand total of 41 AP. I can't remember. It's going to be 1, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's 16 points worth of line infantry. And then it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So it's 16 plus 7 times. These guys are all worth 3. That's 21. That's going to be 37 points. Plus the 2 line infantry. That's 41, 45, including their general. So 45 points. Nice, easy, round number, right? Victory conditions in this case are going to be removal of 4. Oh, let's turn you around the right way. 4 units. Looking over at the other side, though, things get a little more complicated. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that's 14 points worth of line infantry. Then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 specialty units. That's 15. So they're at 29 points plus the general. Call it 33. So even without the mobs, these guys, they're suffering from about a 10-point deficit. What do you do with the mobs? Now, if we make them equivalent to these guys, the fact that they don't have much in the way of firepower doesn't mean much because the line infantry's strength is in the charge. So if I make these guys equivalent to a line infantry, except they can't shoot, it's not that big of a downgrade. Now you've got to deal with the fact that you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 15 extra units on that side. And if that's the case, that extra 30 units means that they basically have a 2-to-1 advantage over the Royalists. Well, what kind of game is that going to be? It's going to be a steamroll. So I decided that what we're going to do this time is we're going to give these guys a -1 when they fight in melee, except when they have someone supporting them from behind. When there's someone behind them, so you've got these 2 units stacked up, then they get a +1, right? So that +1 negates the regular one, so now you need a 2-to-1 advantage. It's going to be very interesting to see what this means in terms of gameplay, because if the front rank is chased off, and you follow up suit, so they're now disrupted, these guys are now fighting in a -1. They have not been able to do nearly as much damage and get as far into the backfield as they thought because you had that secondary lineup. I think if we do that, we are going to find this a much more interesting and fair and balanced battle. Likewise, the other thing to consider is what happens if they win. If you've got this double stack of polearm guys and they win, then he's going to run off, they follow up, and oh look, now they're only at -1. Their impetuousness has cost them something of an advantage. If they can't follow up, then they're going to lose that neutral weight, and the +2 for attacking a disrupted unit becomes only a +1 for these guys. So they're not going to be able to finish off their enemies unless they are able to compensate for that somehow. So that's the end of the situation. That's the end of our little special rules. We're going to go towards, they can lose a total of, actually, because they've got so many more stands, we're only going to count, So now that's another great question. Do we count these as a single stand? It makes that whole army a lot less fragile. Yeah, we're going to do that, but we're going to give him the 8-inch command radius. Those should help kind of offset. So, and that being the case, we're going to go to 5 stands removed. Whoever loses 5 stands first immediately loses. It occurred to me after the last battle, I probably should have fought it out to the bitter end to see what all the casualties were on the end of that turn. But since this is the last battle of our little mini Cholet campaign, it doesn't really make much of a difference. As soon as somebody loses 5, they lose the battle. All right, let me set up my lines, and we'll get started. Let me give you some idea where my head's at with the setup here, okay? There was a lull in the action between the morning and the afternoon, which gave both sides time to address their lines. Did that really happen? Is that historical? No, not at all. But we're trying to play a game here, okay? In which the results of the initial battles impact the results of this final battle. So what I've done is I've said, look, they pulled back to here, and they've kind of established a bit of a perimeter around the outskirts of Cholet. That's easy enough. Over on this side, they have just kind of come down off the ridge and out of the hills. Now, technically, these guys over here, this Vendee and right, should be coming on from this side. Let me spin this over so you can see. Technically, they should probably be coming in from this way. That's the ridge that they marched down and punched through. They actually went ahead and shifted over to kind of link back up to protect their left flank from being penetrated by these guys. So that's kind of, but then what I did is I kind of hooked them around this way. So they're a lot closer to the enemy than those guys, which gives the Vendeans the difficulty of trying to decide, well, should we sweep them forward immediately and try to make contact as fast as possible, or should we just wait until everybody comes up as a big wall? And the answer is going to be important because it's going to dictate how the Republicans move. And because the Republicans now, they have a much more difficult management situation because their general only has a 6-inch command radius. So, the Royalists have now moved, and they're kind of dressing their lines up a little bit. There's no shooting to happen at this point in the game. So we'll move directly on to the Republicans rolling for reinforcements. They get a big 5, so their reinforcement counter, I'm going to use a D20 down here to help me remember what I rolled, starts at a 5, and then it is their turn to move and then rally units if need be. And they're actually... they're going to go ahead and bring these guys out. We'll put a line infantry into the what would that be? That's kind of a chapel as far as my boys are concerned. We're going to leave one unit there, and then these guys are going to move 1.5 inches to the side like that. Essentially, we're going to bring everything over this way and shift to try to bring force over here to where the reinforcements are coming in. We'll leave a little bit of a picket line. In fact, I think we'll go ahead and bring these guys back to here so they can help out if need be. But otherwise, I think we're content to just stay right where we're at. Maybe we'll go ahead and bring the cavalry light move 5 inches, and the heavy cavalry move 4. Make sure I got that right. Yeah, light cav move 5, heavy cav move 4, and then these guys can also move 5 inches to there. I think in the rules there may be something about cavalry have to stop when they enter a town, but we're kind of hand waving our way through most of this. Our leader, we want to stay within 6 inches of as many people as possible. I think we're there. There's no cannon fire. Is there any cannon fire on the part of the Vendeans? They actually do have range to this built-up area. But given that they have a -2 to the roll, they can't have any effect on that. So they got to get these cannons up to within 3 inches to really bombard there. That's the end of turn 1. Moving on to turn 2, the Noose Titans. We've got a couple of cavalry that are coming up along this way. Are they charging a cannon? That doesn't sound like a smart idea. On the part of the Vendees now have an opportunity to fire. So we've got a cannon shooting at this column right here, and with a result of a 5. Now that's going to be at -1 because it's at extreme range. Anything over 3 inches is a -1. A result of 4 is nothing. We've got another shot here. I think that's within range. Oh, they stayed just out of range. Look at that. Clever peasant mob knew what they were doing. And that's it. These guys are in range, but of course they're all jammed up here on the crossroads, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens there, who's got the precedence. That means it's time for them to move, and just as with last time, we're going to bring these light cavalry 5 inches over this way. To the heavy can move to here. Oh, you know, we've got a cannon. Oh, you know what? We do have one more cannon. I forgot about that guy. He can shoot, and he's going to shoot at... Let's shoot at the line infantry here. No dice. No good. So we've moved these cavalry up. These cavalry are going to go 5 inches. So we're doing a sweep around this way with the cavalry. They're kind of hooking and dancing. And I think that's... Is that it? I don't think it is. I think we're going to bring this guy back 1.5 inches to here. And we'll bring... Now, these guys can just kind of stay over here and be a nuisance. They're going to have to turn, though, if they want to come over and support these guys. And then I think that's it. Slide him over. We're going to bring these guys back 1.5 inches. These guys, we're just going to kind of bring everybody back a little bit. Give ourselves a little more time. And that's it. They now have a shot, but like I said, they don't have anybody that can shoot, so we can move on to the next turn. But before we do, we have to add to the reinforcement counter 10. It looks like Haxo is not going to waste any time. So if I roll a 5 or a 6 on their movement, Haxo can come on immediately, which he may not want to do. He may mistime this. He may want to wait 4 or 5 turns so we can come in when things are falling apart here and really hammer things home. And I think... now you can see what's going on over here. It's time for the Republicans to take fire. And this cannon would love to shoot at these horses. He's got a bonus for that. But this little mob is screening them. And, oh, that's a really good shot. With a 6, at long range becomes a 5. They are now pinned. And that's the only way they can be pinned because they can't shoot. But that might have, hey, better those guys getting pinned if the target is, where is it? Target is cavalry, that would have been an 8 and they would have been destroyed. As it is, those units are going to have to weather one round of cannon fire. Any other cannon fire? Yeah, of course. We've got cannon fire here. We're going to fire at these guys. And that is going to be within 3 inches now. So you get the bonus of +1. Not that it does any good. And then we're going to fire at these guys. Same thing. A 4 is going to be no effect. It is beyond that 3 inches. So there's actually a 3. Nothing happens. No other shooting that goes on. So now player 2 dices for reinforcements. He gets a 2, bringing his reinforcement counter up to 12. And he gets 1 more turn. So things are still going to be awkward over here as these mobs rush in to danger without realizing it. The blue now gets to go, and we're going to pull these guys over just a little bit more. And now we will definitely be bringing these guys over to try to protect. These guys are going to turn this way. Oh, we forgot to do an attack here. Actually, we're going to bring him up a little bit. We forgot to do this melee. That's going to be the blue. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. That's going to destroy this foot unit. Loser destroyed must follow up, and unfortunately that means they pursue outside of their protective environs. You know, I don't know about that. I don't know if you must follow up out of a prepared defensive work. I'll allow it. I guess everybody's blood is up. What a tragic mistake. Oh, you know, the other thing that does, it allows these guys to step in. We'll bring these guys up, and we can kind of reposition our line based on the results of that. That's what we'll do. I think that's a pretty fair compromise. The big thing is going to be these ponies over here are going to go 4, 5, and then these guys only get to move 4 inches. So we'll go 4 to here. Oh, and they're on the road, so they can go 5. And I think that's it for them moving. We do have 1 cannon shot here, which is going to be at a -1. So a 6 is the only thing that would have done any good. And that 5 pins the target where she's at. So you go, which one were they shooting at? This guy right here is now pinned. He's going to lose his first fire bonus if he does use his musket fire. Where's that put us? It puts us at resolving melee, and we've got 1 melee right here, which is going to be at even Stevens. This is our first time with a polearm column taking on regular infantry. And it doesn't do them a whole lot of good. When you win by 2, the loser routes on a 1 or a 2 with an optional follow-up. With a 1 or a 2, this guy is destroyed. He's not destroyed, but he does go 1, 2, 3, 4, maximum movement. He's on the road. He's going to move that 4th inch away. And with an optional follow-up, yeah, we'll go ahead and take it. Why not? Maybe we can do some damage up here. And I mean, if we can get to this guy, he's really vulnerable right now. But that'll have to wait till the next round. Only the horses can do multiple melees in the same round. Like follow-up and kill, follow-up, retreat, retreat, retreat. These guys, all they can do is decide whether they get locked up one more time. And I think that's it. Yeah, that's about it. So we move on to the next turn. And we're going to bring these guys up to here. Which may... Oh, see? No, we'll just bring them straight up as close as we can get. These guys can move 5 inches. These guys can move 5 inches. And even if they get blasted out of their saddles, these guys can maybe move to contact. Vendee movement is done. I had to pull out a little bit more so you could see all of the action. These horses are now cycling around. We've got 1 unit of regular foot that's on its way. And with a little bit of help, we got a couple of guys there that are ready to do some damage to the guys that got a little too frisky. And then, of course, is this a little bit of a cheat? The fact that these guys know Haxo is coming? Yeah, compared to historical, it does, but it's a game. What are you going to do? That is the end of their movement. Now they get to roll for recovery, and they only have 2 units that are capable of recovering. This unit here recovers on a 5 or a 6. This unit also recovers on a 5 or a 6. Neither of them do. So we move on to the shooting phase, and this one might be a little bit bloody. We've got one shot here that is at close range, and that means it's going to be at +1 against this guy. And I'm sorry, that's a 6, +1 against this foot. The result of a 6 is the target is disrupted, so they cannot move and they cannot shoot until they recover, and General Del Bay is a little bit too far away to do anything about that. Although he can move on his next turn. Anyway, we got one more shot. This guy is going to go ahead and take a shot at the cavalry. He gets a +2 to his roll. And on an 8, that is going to be the target is destroyed. So cavalry going up against artillery worked out just exactly as you'd expect. That's it for shooting. Is it? No, it's not. We've got a shot over here. It's 1 inch away. We're going to shoot. Oh, we got a shot over here, too. So we'll do this shot first. No effect. He is now pinned. No more maneuver for you. Actually, well, he is a grenadier. This guy is going to shoot here. And with a result of a 5, it's going to pin that unit. Who else? We have any other shots? That cannon fired. That's it. So now player 1 resolves melee. We got some. We got a melee here. These guys are at evens because they have their backup. But they did make contact with a cannon who was going to fight at -3. So that cannon is destroyed with a must follow up. Oh, we should have moved him. We should have moved our leader over. Seeing that was going to happen, I'm going to do it just because they're not dumb. So that must follow up is 1, 2, 3, and then 4. So these guys have broken into the town. They're so happy to be in Cholet, they don't know what to do with themselves. We have another combat over here, and this one's going to be a little bit different. It's going to be straight evens. We're going to do this battle first. My last video, somebody corrected me. Since we do this one first, if he routes into an enemy and he is destroyed. Tie means re-roll. Blue wins by 5, which is a loser destroyed, and a must follow up. So he has to follow up this way. So they charge out of that situation. What happens if you follow up? Yep, and then they're stuck there until the next. Wow, this is falling apart quick, isn't it? For the Republicans. Any other melee? I don't see anybody else touching. And now to make matters worse, it is the Republicans' turn to move. So here's our reinforcements. Haxo comes on. And he's going to come on right here. That costs 1 inch. He's going to move to contact here and here into that bridge area. That's going to allow our horses to come up to here. These guys are going to go across the bridge. They can move a total of 5 inches to here. And then these guys can come down 2 inches to there and 2 inches up to here. Like so. So the idea being that they just want to get here into the backfield, so as these guys start winning, they can do some good. Or maybe even go tangle with these light infantry and drive them off. That's really about all they can do at this point. The only other movement we have is we're going to do an 1.5 inches of advancing in retrograde for this cannon, and we're going to slide him over that way, actually. I think we can... we don't have a very good pairing there, do we? They're too far away to reach that cannon. So why don't we go ahead and do something like this. And then we'll bring this light infantry over there. And I think that's it for our movement, unless we want to come out. Yeah, let's come out and attack that guy too, because I like that +1. I think that's a really good chance they're going to win. The Republicans now have a chance to shoot. He's out of range. This 1-inch range is just brutal, isn't it? Not a lot you can do with that. Doesn't look like they have any shooting. Yeah, their cannon is now being contacted. So, yeah. The only other movement I think we can do is to come over here. Oh, it's not their movement turn yet. It's a melee turn. Let's start over here and see what Haxo does. We've got to fight, and we're going to do this one first. Now, they have an extra +1 because they're inside the built-up area like we talked about. So red die is at +1. The blue die is also at +1 because he's got a little bit of help. Tied. We need a lot of those. The blue die, so that's a difference of 4. And a difference of 4 is loser destroyed. And that is the 4th unit lost. With a must follow up, so they follow up to there. Wow. So this does get a little bit complicated. We can handle it. We're smart. We have a straight fight here. That's going to go the way of the blues. And with that difference of 1, they're going to turn... They're disrupted. They're going to go 1, 2, 3 to there. And they're disrupted. Then we have another fight here. We're going to do... Let's do this one first. We're going to do this one first because we want to follow up into these guys. There's our victory. That's going to be 7 versus 4 with a difference of 3, loser destroyed. And that then is the end of the battle. That's the 5th casualty. And it looks like the Republicans have won again. So our results are in keeping with the historical results. Haxo was able to get a big surprise on and a big win over here on the mob that didn't have enough of the veteran troops, the experienced soldiers, backing them up. Over on this side, the impetuous Royalists brought a horse to a cannon fight, and it didn't go well. And fundamentally, having places to retreat to, being able to kind of get up and pick their battles, taking their time to pick where they were going to fight, made all the difference in the world for these guys. We're getting a little smoother, getting a little better. I mean, if we wanted to, we've got 2 more fights we could run through. This is going to be at a +2 for... So these guys would be disrupted. Which would hurt in the long run. And then we've got 1 more, just a straight fight. And finally, we get a win for the Republicans, but it's too little too late. Now, historically, this is what happened. The center column realized that the guys on the right were falling apart. They made a huge push to try to take Cholet, couldn't quite make it. They wind up fleeing to the north, and another column of about 5,000 troops. One of the things I don't think I've ever mentioned is exactly how big this battle is. Referring now to my notes, the Republicans combined 3 field armies into a group of around 25,000 men. And I want to say that the Vendeans had something like 78,000. One other thing that kind of lines up with the historical results is that center column was surprised by an effective artillery bombardment. The Republicans had hidden a battery in a sunken road, and as their line infantry was fleeing past, they were able to fire close-range canister shot into the ranks of the approaching Vendeans, and they actually killed, I think it was Delbey and Bonchamps, who were the two best strategists on the Vendean side of the game. So the Vendeans, anyway, they were able to retreat in fairly good order because they had a reserve column of 5,000 show up. They'd marched all day and all night. The Republicans, as they did, made sure to slaughter. They took no quarter. They slaughtered anybody they could get their hands on. They just loved soaking their hands in blood because they knew that blood was the only way to wash the sins of the old world away, not realizing that the blood of the Savior is what had washed away the sins of those guys. But that's a topic for another day. The topic for today is that they were able to retreat in good order, and even though they were hampered by 70,000 refugees, they were able to make a literally miraculous escape over the River Loire to the north and live to fight another day. It took 6 more months of fighting, and as a result of that fighting, the Parisian mob realized that they needed to make some accommodations, that you have to allow for the freedom of religion in your country, because once you start oppressing these guys, things get really chippy. They've got nothing left to lose. They know that their numbered days here on earth are just a prelude to numberless days in the next life, where these guys, these worshipers of science, believe that their days are numbered on earth and then there's nothing left after that. They've got a lot less to lose. All they have to gain is salvation. So it makes it tough to fight an army like that. A valuable lesson, and not just for these guys, but for would-be despots everywhere. Gear down, Big Rig. Tap the brakes. You don't want to make things any uglier than they need to be. Till next time, remember, I'm praying for you.